So welcome all. Hope my screen is visible. Yeah. My screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for confirmation. So welcome all. Welcome to the next session, which is we are on 2.8 session, which means that 12 plus 8, 20th session today. And we are talking about modern energy in cooking. And the today's session is focused on the IPR management, especially in cross-border relationships. This topic is slightly complicated, slightly easy, because most of the time we not focus too much on this topic. And whereas the most of the businesses are going global, and likewise the clean cooking also going global. Here also a lot of IT based tools are also coming, like we are calling it the smart meter devices, and also in such scenario, the devices will be connected globally and the manufacturers are also connected globally. So it is important to understand that what are the nitty-gritties and all, which Dr. Nick is going to talk in details. And then we have the very wonderful panelists who will going to touch upon each and every topic and aspects of the international relationships. So who are we as a MECS program? So MECS program is seeking a spark in new approach in clean cooking, and we are and it is a researching on the socio-economic realities and transition to polluting fuel to range of modern fuel. And when we say modern fuel as a MECS program, electricity, solar, and onward, we are looking as the modern fuel for the cooking. And as a research suggests that we require to have the viable solution, cost-effective solution, easy to adapt and all, which is the electric cooking is actually fitting into all the right quadrants. So electric cooking has the better prepositions when we talk about the next move of clean cooking. And we are from Finovista. Finovista is in-country partner for MECS program in India. It's a global program. And as a MECS program, we are working in predominantly 4 strands: policy, supply chain, consumer / promotion, and finance, which is a natural thing to promote any solution. So on the policy side, we are working with the government, we are working with the policy researchers and all, creating evidence that clean cooking is needed and required to push it forward. One of the initiatives is that we did a modern energy cooking forum in September 2022 as a first edition, and it actually opened the eyes of everybody, and this is actually become one of the most powerful tools. In 2023, we are again scheduled to organize on 27th of October at New Delhi. It's tentatively scheduled. And another aspect is that talk series, which we all are present here. This is also a very important tool. We are talking about every month, mostly on third week of Thursday. Every month we are talking and we are covering multiple aspects related to clean cooking. This is a kind of becoming a very important platform where people are interacting, connecting with each other. So this is the moreover kind of interactive platform where we are bringing the speakers from different aspects. We request the audience and the speakers to connect with each other through the WhatsApp chat, through the MS Team chats and all. Yeah, and it is purely depend on you. And if you want to facilitate any connections, we can able to do that. In the supply chain, it is very important that uh, India is a hub as a MECS program. We are positioning India as the hub for device manufacturing. So a lot of devices, Indian manufactured devices are expected to go to the program countries. And here the today's session is very, very important. Whenever we're talking about taking Indian devices to program countries, not only the retail and distribution relationship, but maybe the joint manufacturing, joint manufacturing, customized manufacturing, etc. Sometimes OEM setup manufacturing. So this is a very important relationship. How to protect the knowledge, know-how, IP, patents, trademarks, etc. And the on the promotion side, we have actually launched the India e-cookbook, where we have established that how e-cooking is possible, what kind of dishes can be cooked and all. And this talk series I have already spoke about, so not going to talk, but this is the we have the very good registration. The people are actually coming, joining, and it's a good value. Most of the time we are seeing that people are connecting with either. A lot of people are writing a mail. Can you able to suggest connect on all? And we have facilitated a lot of connections, especially with the government ministries, with the MNRE, with the Ministry of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, EESL, and international partners. So this is becoming a truly collaborative platform. And today's topic is IPR management in cross-border transactions. So we are basically trying to understand that how to promote innovation and technology, especially in the SME startup, as we know the challenges being not very big. We have a lot of litigations cost also. So how to minimize that? What are the incentive offered through this kind of IPR mechanism? The possible avenue to get the protection if any violation, and then the e-commerce kind of setup. And also we have a wonderful panelist and all who are going to talk about. Dr. Nick is also going to talk about in these areas in details. And again, this we mentioned that we are doing every month. So the ninth talk series, which is we are focusing on green shift in cooking, which is scheduled on 29th of June. And then the 10th talk series is focusing on the woman. So woman is very, very important aspect. So we always leave women on the table when we're talking about clean cooking or energy. So most of the time only male are discussing. So we always try to bring the gender balance, which is if it is a solution is for women. So let's women participation is important from both sides of the table. So we are seeing that how we can actually sensitize the women to be in this sector. So that will be the 10th talk series on 20th of July. Uh, in my one of the four strands, finance was one of the important aspects, and the sector required a lot of investments. Sector some of the reports suggest $10 billion is annual investment required globally to facilitate the clean cooking, and the fundraising is very, very minuscule, even in the just in millions, few double digits of million and all. So which means that we need to accelerate the investments. For this, we have launched the Investor Pitching Connect program, where we are facilitating the Indian manufacturers and the ecosystem player to raise the fund through the equity and hybrid tools in working in any domain of the electric cooking, solar power cooking, hydrogen or bio-based cooking, LPG, PNG, and other any modern energy cooking. And company can be can be any size, right from the startup innovator to the SME or even the large company, whatever. And you should be in any part of the business, like it's a design or development or ending with the maybe on the sales and marketing. Financing is one of the interesting tools. So we like to understand and support. Pay-go model is the new area where a lot of interactions we are seeing. So this is our coordinates. So whenever you require any support, please let us know. Satyam Kumar from our team is managing the program, so you can get in touch with him. Is a very nice guy. He's able to support and provide all the informations needed and all. And this is the link and QR code. You can actually go and apply. And with this, I will end my presentation here, and with a request to Dr. Nick to take it forward from here. And quickly, I like to introduce Dr. Nick Russo. He is the International License Manager, MECS program. And Dr. Nick Nick, brief profile is he holds a BA, MSc, and the PhD degree in psychology from the University of Cambridge, Loughborough, and Sheffield. With a focus on psychology and the user-centric system design, Nick has over 20 years of experience working in UK government, and his final role was head of international innovation strategy at the Department of Business Innovation and the Skills, BEIS, and now it's renamed again. Within the MECS project, MECS program, Nick is one of the international license managers where he leads the work with India. So with this, we request Dr. Nick to take the session from here and yeah.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you. I have some slides, but very good to meet you all through this medium. I am, as correctly introduced, I'm Nick Russo, and I have a background in working in international aspects of innovation. So I have a little bit of knowledge about this area of intellectual property. So I thought I'd set the scene, particularly in terms of how intellectual property manifests in the electric cooking world. I've got a few slides that hopefully will encourage everyone to kind of build their understanding of this area. And then obviously we'll hand over to the experts to talk about some of the specific issues that people face as they take forward the management of intellectual property. Okay, so what kind of assets are there? Intellectual property can take many different forms. These are all terms that you might have heard of: copyright, patents, design, trademarks, trade secrets. But basically, they can either be registered or unregistered. If you have a means of registering your intellectual property, that gives you a form of protection under the government, but it works under certain legal jurisdictions, and we'll hear more about that. But there's a lot of unregistered intellectual property, which you don't have any way of protecting through government systems, but you just have to manage that risk yourself. And when you're thinking about intellectual property, you want to consider the fact that you're creating it as part of your business. You then need to think about how you're going to protect it, make best use of it in your business so that you get the value from it. And then there's a risk of leaking intellectual property, and your competition might get access to it, and then they can exploit it. And if they are bound to do that, then how are you going to enforce the restrictions or the rights that you have? So it's quite a complicated landscape, and particularly for a small company, it can be a challenge to manage. In terms of the electric cooking domain, basically there's a kind of fairly conventional supply chain you can think about, from sourcing components to manufacture, to the design, to the technology development. You have marketing materials, you provide consumer support. You then sell on to a distributor. There's logistics aspects. You then have in-market promotion and sales, user engagement, the actual usage by your users, and some kind of after-sales support. And all these processes rely on some kind of intellectual property, some knowledge that you're bringing to that process, but also they generate intellectual property. So if you've got a good logistics understanding, then that's really valuable and can give you an edge in the market. If you've got good after-sales support and you understand what people need, and that's another form of intellectual property that can really help. So all levels, and if you think about an international supply chain where the components are being sourced in one country, the manufacturer is in another country, the sales and the distribution and the after-sales support can be in another country, and they can have different companies involved in all of these. But if you want to actually drive improvement in the sector, you actually need a good flow of information. You need information about after-sales support and the kind of problems that people have in order to improve your manufacture, to help you to design and develop the best technology. And certainly how people use your devices can be really helpful in innovation, in developing the next generation of these. So ideally, you want a good collaborative approach between the players at the different stages in this supply chain, rather than sort of being rigid and stuck. So how can you manage all this? It's complicated. So I've got three simple scenarios that I wanted to talk you through. I'll try not to take too much time, but just to unpack what I mean when I'm talking about intellectual property. So if you start by thinking about an electric cooking device, such as an electric pressure cooker, that has an external design, it's got nice features, it's got buttons you can press, it's got things written on it, it's got a set of accessories, but also internally it's got a whole bunch of safety features, of components, of clever bits of technology that make it work. So how do you actually make sure that what you've got is good? Well, obviously you want to understand your users and what they cook and how they cook and the constraints in which they operate and what their kitchen is like. So there's a whole bunch of information that ideally one wants to have that could be really relevant to the design of the cooking device. And you could call those user insights. So if you kind of capture that as a single thing through maybe some research, through some engagement with users, through going out and observing, and then that body of user insights helps you to design the controls, the menu options, the color even, all those external features, and it helps you to design the internal workings and the programming and the kind of safety features that you need to build in. And so this is all really good, but of course, multiple companies could be involved. You know, there could be a company in Africa that is collecting all this information about users and building their user insights, but that needs to be made available to the company that does the manufacturing and the design. So what's the terms here? So trade secrets is what you'd call user insights. There isn't really any, they're not patents, they're not something that you can register. So you have to kind of consider them as part of your key knowledge as a business. The external aspects of the device, one would refer to as designs. And then within the device, you may have some trade secrets and also some inventions. And so those are, again, different things that you could hold to give you some value. However, these things can leak. And so you can lose your trade secrets because someone in your team shares them with someone else, or through someone hacks into your computer system and accesses your information. Clearly, a design is something that can easily be copied. People can say, oh, that's a good idea. I'll simply copy that pictogram or that color. And similarly, if you've got internal technology and design, then again, that can be leaked by someone in the team leaking it or someone hacking into your data sets. So what do you do to protect that? To protect your trade secrets in this context, you need to have good security and good HR practice. You need to be managing your team and giving them clear messages about keeping information to themselves. And in terms of inventions and the like, you can then start to see, you can register patents, and that will then help to protect the more complex bits of the technology. So that's one scenario. There's very little to do about the design to protect it because it clearly is very externally visible. Anyone can simply take a device and choose to copy it if they wish to. You then have a scenario where you're manufacturing, and a manufacturer may manufacture multiple devices for different companies, maybe a whole bunch of induction stoves in this case, and each of those costs quite a lot to manufacture. But as a single manufacturer with multiple clients, you can build up what you might call manufacturer requirements insights, which helps you to understand the common aspects of the products that you're creating, and maybe to design something which makes your manufacturing process quicker and cheaper. And so you can now offer your clients the same manufacturer solution, but at a lower price. So that gives you a benefit in the market. So what's that? Well, again, we're now talking about trade secrets and inventions that are being developed in your manufacturing base. Clearly, those insights are also trade secrets which could be valuable. The design of the PCB or the programming or whatever it is that you're using to make your manufacturing more cost effective. Again, another trade secret and potentially an invention. All of these things can potentially leak. And now you're talking about different companies, your clients are there, your manufacturing teams are all in the mix. And so what do you have? You have NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and again, you have security, HR practice. Similarly, when you're talking about your insights and your ways of cutting costs, NDAs, and then later on, if you've got some innovative new PCB design or something, maybe there's a scope for a patent. Final scenario, very quickly, you may be the manufacturer of someone who has done a lot of research in the market and has gained user insights, developed a really smart design for the internal workings of the system, and also has an innovative business model that really harnesses all that information and is unique to their business. And they want to manufacture that. They're not the manufacturer themselves. And so they have to share all this information to the company that is going to provide that manufacturing for them. And that is basically embodying a lot of their business knowledge. And that is a tricky area because that, again, may represent trade secrets. A lot of that information is not necessarily easily patentable. Some of it will be, no doubt. But then you've got this potential that if your manufacturer is working with other clients, manufacturing for them, there's a potential for leak to those clients, which would be competitors to the company on the left. So what you do, you need to have the usual non-disclosure agreements. You have clear agreements in the contractual relations between the manufacturer and the company that's commissioning the manufacture. But as important as all these, ultimately, you need to build trust because you want both sides to be able to be fairly open. And I think that's a key message through all this, that trust and trusted relationships are absolutely critical in these supply chains because there has to be a good flow of information. If people aren't sharing the information they have openly, then everything starts to slow down and become much harder. I think I'm going to end there. Oh yes, and effective internal systems so that you don't share information with another client inadvertently. Anyway, that's me. I better stop. So I'll stop sharing. Thank you very much. And I'll now hand over to our expert speakers. Let me just close down the presentation. Apologies. Right, here we go. Here we go. So our first speaker is Ms. Vidisha Garg, and she is a partner at Anand & Anand and has been actively involved in the field of patents for over 19 years now. She represents clients in several pre-grant and post-grant patent opposition matters, and her practice areas also see her engagement in providing opinions and strategies on patent laws in India, drafting of patent specifications, patent searches, validity, patentability, and infringement opinions. Vidisha is also involved in IP portfolio management of several startups, and she is registered as an IP facilitator of startups and SMEs. And her clients range from Fortune 500 companies right down to early stage. She's also an active member of several international bodies aiming to create a harmonization of IP laws worldwide. Ms. Garg, we welcome your contribution. Oh, Vimal's hand's come up. Do you want to make a point?
Nick, I'm sorry. I think she is a part of the panel discussion, so I think we should be inviting Hema first, as she is the presenting that first. So I'm sorry for the confusion. All right. Okay. I apologize for that. And Dr. Hema. Vidisha also. Okay. All right. I'll introduce Dr. Hema Bayaji. Have I got that right? She's an innovation consultant within the health tech team at Basque Limited. She works closely with the sustainability team in the UK office at the IP strategy firm. She's strong life science background with over 15 years experience in professionally working with complex scientific data and the latest technological developments to assist directing research strategies. And she will set the scene in terms of the IP issues that we face. Over to you, Dr. Bayaji.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'll just share my screen. 1 second.
Yeah, we can able to hear you, but you have to be slightly louder.
Oh, okay. I'll move the. Does that help? Is that better?
Yes.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, please.
And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So is it sharing? Can you see the slideshow?
Oh, it's still. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction. So this will be a very general talk in IPR management globally. So as mentioned, my name is Hema Baiji. I'm an innovation consultant in the health tech team at BASC, but I also work very closely with the sustainability team as well. So for a bit of background about myself, so I have a PhD in molecular biology from the University of Cambridge, and then shortly afterwards I worked in multiple labs. I did a stint at the European Bioinformatics Institute, which is also based in Cambridge. And so collectively, I have over 15 years of experience of working with complex scientific data. And at the moment, I am an innovation consultant with BASC, and I drive innovation and IP strategy for clients at BASC. So a little bit of background about BASC. So we're an international organisation. Our main headquarters are in the United Kingdom, which is where I am based, but we have offices in Europe, in India, and we work very closely with agents all over the world as well in a variety of countries. So for some stats, we are a growing company, so we have over 85 people working for us. We work with over 650 fast-growing science and technology companies that have raised over £2 billion in funding. So we realise that sustainability is fast becoming a growing concern for companies, institutes, governments, universities, and so thus we have restructured our company to hone in on this. So we now have health and biotech sector, digitalization sector, style sector, and we have a dedicated sustainability sector, and there's actually quite a lot of crosstalks between the different teams. So sustainability actually fits in with each of these sectors. Here we go. So I'm going to go on to the perceived complexities about filing an IP. So I put perceived in inverted commas because I think a lot of these complexities can be overcome, and perhaps if we identify what the complexities are, then we can put things in place to try and address what it is that's preventing you from filing your IP or even investigating what IP you need. So I think one of the key things, one of the key factors that perhaps prevents companies from looking into IP or filing in the early stages is cost, because it's quite expensive to file, and then if you want to go internationally, there's a further expense as well. The timing as well, it takes quite a long time. It's not the case that you put in an application, then immediately you're granted your patent or your trademark. It's quite a long process. It goes through an examination process, and it can be quite timely. But also there may be obstacles that we've put in place that could be slowing us down in terms of progress. So it was mentioned earlier that we're really trying to encourage women in innovation. So I'll touch on this a little bit more later, but it could be that there are internal biases that we have in place, because ideally we want the best people for the job. And if we are putting obstacles in place which are preventing us from securing those people, we need to find out what they are and see what we can do to address those. So I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end, but on a more practical note, so what do our clients do? So what is their route? So over 75% of our high-tech clients actually file in the UK or US first, and then in China. So before it was they would file in the UK or US and then Japan, but actually over the last 10 years, this has changed to UK or US, then China. But also when filing internationally, our clients may focus on key markets. For instance, they may look at the population, market opportunity, the competitor locations, major import-export hubs, R&D centres, key litigation markets, and future market opportunities as well. So key for our clients is generally the US and Europe. There is increasing interest in filing in India. So when we first started working with India, the number of patents filed annually was actually the same as the UK, but now whilst the UK actually remains the same, but now there are more filings happening in India, which is great. So I mentioned cost as one of the major factors which could be impeding progress. So we actually offer an initiative to help startups to counteract that, and it's our major sustainability initiative that we have running at the moment. So we are actually offering one free patent application to 100 startups that address Sustainability Development Goals 9 and 13. So these cover innovation, infrastructure, and climate as well. And this is to give our clients a head start and drive innovation during the climate crisis. But even if we look globally, there are various incentives for filing your IP as well, which could really help with the financial issues that you may have. So, for instance, governments of China and South Korea are actually funding some of the international costs of filing, which is a great help and really helps to promote innovation. So I mentioned earlier some of the obstacles. So it would be really good to identify what the obstacles are, and in preventing you from preventing the promotion of IP, but also preventing you from filing your IP. So once we identify what those are, then we can address them. So as I mentioned, there could be internal biases within the company. Perhaps you're selecting for certain types of people or certain types of skill set. It may be worth branching out and looking for other areas where you could collaborate and really hone in on what it is what are the issues that need addressing. It could be that you already have the appropriate people working with you, but you actually just need to improve the training and actually offer maybe more specific training for people to really hone in on their skills and develop further, and perhaps that's when they can really shine. It could be that we need to really look at our workforce and address what the strengths are and really hone in on those strengths and capitalize on them to empower people to come up with the ideas, come forwards with the ideas, and then perhaps this will help with attracting a more diverse workforce and people who are really skilled to do the job that's needed. So I think it's really important that we try and empower, so not just women in the workplace, but all staff in the workplace, and encourage people to come forwards and deliver their ideas in a forum where it's safe and it's appropriate to do so. So on that note, I hope that's given you some food for thought, some ideas, things to think about. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hema.
That's okay.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a really good introduction to some of the issues around patent filing. And obviously good to know that your company is offering some support and incentives, and that there are other support available. Flagging up that we're getting some questions coming through in the chat, so do have a look at those, and we can come back to them in the panel discussion if we can. But if you have an answer or want to make a suggestion or respond to a question, again, you can do that in the chat. As Vimal said, this is all about kind of connecting people. So am I right now that it's now going to be Ms. Garg who is speaking? Is that okay? I apologize for getting the order wrong earlier. I hope that hasn't caused too much confusion. And I won't repeat everything that I said, but Ms. Garg is a partner at Anand & Anand and has been actively involved in the field of patents for nearly 20 years now. So I will hand over to Ms. Garg and invite her to offer her comments on the questions that we're asking.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you, Vimal. So actually, I have been asked to speak on the schemes which have been offered, which are being offered by Government of India to the startups for protection of their IP and most particularly the patents. So we must first start and understand what is the definition or who qualify for being a startup in India. So basically, this definition has been provided by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade under the scheme Startup India. According to the scheme, any entity who has is about to complete or is within the 10 years window from its date of incorporation or registration, and if this entity's turnover for the last 10 financial years has not exceeded 100 crores, it is considered as a startup. And therefore, under the Startup India scheme of the Government of India, they can register, they can go to the website of DPIIT and they can register themselves as a startup and obtain a certificate of being a startup. This certificate provides them a hell lot of opportunities and incentives which are being provided under this scheme. The most important incentive available to the startup under the scheme is that they get a lot of facilities and hand holding and financial aid for filing patent applications, trademark applications, and other IP applications. Uh, uh, a parallel scheme under the DPIIT is being run by Indian Patent Office, which is called Startup Intellectual Property Protection Scheme. And under this scheme, trademark facilitators, patent trade facilitators, design facilitators have been appointed by the Indian Patent Office and Trademark Registry. These facilitators are the patent agents, trademark agents who are working with the IPO, and they have registered themselves as facilitator, and these facilitators are available to the startups for consultation, for drafting of their application, prosecution of the patent, trademark, and design applications. Uh, so, in a way, these facilitators provide a lot of aid to the startups for registration of their IP. At the same time, these startups are provided some financial remuneration by the Government of India. Therefore, startups do not require to pay anything to them. So therefore, the filing and obtaining IP becomes a free thing for them. Um, Further, under the Startup India scheme, there are tax rebates for the startups. There are other financial aids under this scheme, and often most recently I just checked the kind of patents being filed by startup in the field of modern energy and relating to cooking. So I find that there are many startups who have been filing patent applications in relation to modern tools and technologies relating to cooking, like some improved or novel types of stoves. Maybe gas stoves are there, electrical stoves are there. The new forms of energy sources have been developed by many startups, and they are not using the conventional liquid LPG gases or coal or kerosene. Instead, they have started using like methane and other gases and other biofuels as energy source for the purpose of cooking. So lots of patent applications are being filed by startups under the scheme. Another scheme which is there, it is under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, which is MIT, we call it in short form. So they have also introduced a scheme for developing a patent and IP ecosystem for the startups. So they provide support for filing patent applications worldwide. So they provide you a support of about 5 lakhs rupees or up to 50%, whichever is lesser. So they provide you support, financial support for filing patent applications globally, worldwide. Then another scheme is there, which we called Atal Innovation Mission. Under this Atal Innovation Mission scheme, the support is provided to the startups for developing their inventions. There, under this scheme, Atal Tinkering Labs, Atal incubation centers and innovation centers have been developed in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And an ecosystem has been created where these startups can work and develop and focus on development of their innovations. Then there are like more than 60 schemes of the central government which are going on right now. Apart from these schemes, each state has also developed come up with their own schemes. For example, like Karnataka government, Gujarat government have created IP hubs, and they are providing financial aid to startups and SMEs for filing and creating their own IP portfolios. So apart from financial assistance, facilitating funding, providing loans, offering mentorship and tax exemption, there are like a lot of um, creation of awareness and an environment of innovation in the country. So that is going on from the end of the government, and it is a mission for the government to promote startups and SMEs so that the Make in India mission of the government becomes more successful. So that's it from my end with respect to the schemes. If any specific question regarding patent filing, I would definitely love to discuss those. You are on mute, Nick.
Yes, sorry. It sounds like there's a great deal of support, but I get the impression sometimes the challenge is finding the contacts. If you've got any links that you could provide in the chat for people,
Sure.
maybe through online, that would be really helpful. But thank you. No, that is encouraging for Indian startups to know there's that support, both national and at the state level. And I see that Dr. Hima has already answered one of the questions that was put in the chat, so thank you for that. About international kind of jurisdictions and what happens if you file a patent in one jurisdiction, but then someone else files a similar one in a different one. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker, Dr. Sarasija Madmanaban. Apologies if I've not pronounced that quite right, but Dr. Sarasija is a patent scientist and patent agent from India. She was formerly trained in life science and chemistry and got a doctorate from the erstwhile USSR Academy of Sciences. She worked briefly as a scientist in Unilever, as IP head for Avesta Grain Technologies, and supported some of the world's largest law firms while with CPA Global, which is now rebranded as Clarivate. She's an independent IP professional and heads life science IP practices in a few consulting firms such as Arctic Invent and Basque Limited, UK. Dr. Sarasija, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for that brilliant introduction. I didn't know I was all that. And hi, Hema. Nice to know you're there. Right. Okay. So it was very nice to hear from the previous speaker about all the resources which are available for startups. I was asked to speak on what are patentable inventions under the Patents Act as amended in 2005, any improvement criteria for patentability, cross-border transactions, etc. So I have a couple of things to say before I share my presentation. First of all, the big behemoth in our patent law is 3K, right? That is for software and algorithms. It says very clearly that algorithms and mathematical formulae, software are not patentable subject matter. And when Nick showed his slide on designing for the user, very clearly there was a temperature sensor, pressure sensor, there were control mechanisms, and in step with how technology is developing, definitely there would be software involved, right? So this is one of the big things one has to surmount when it comes to filing a patent. So how has this improved? This has improved because in 2017, there have been revised guidelines by the government of India for computer-related inventions. So that's a very big step forward. So the 3K can be surmounted. It can be managed by working around that. That is the first one. And the second thing I really wanted to talk about before I go into the details that I had in my presentation was the WIPO Green platform. I'm sure Hema is aware of that, and probably other participants as well. But this is a huge platform for green and sustainable technology and for transactions internationally, where an offer and a need is managed with AI. So if you have a patent or a technology which is for like cooking, and it utilizes like solar energy or something like that, that can be put on the WIPO Green platform for people who need it and who want to take that technology further. That is a huge initiative, and that is even here, like on the 7th last week, we had a seminar in the Indian Institute of Science, which talked about this. So these are a few things. And now I would just give me a minute. I'll share my presentation. Just let me quickly share.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very quickly, I'll just take you through some of the points that I have. So I just wanted to show some of the things, and Adisha can correct me if I'm wrong. Please feel free, and just want to share some things. Nick spoke about unregistered IP, and that's what I wanted to show here, that we have a whole lot of stuff happening in India when it comes to solar energy, ethanol, or distribution, pellets, briquettes, etc. But we don't find them on the patent databases. Okay, and if we look at the patents filed for renewable energy and technologies, we can see a whole lot happening in various areas. But when you look at India in those databases, we don't find India figuring over there, and that is because our there is a little bit of a hole here, because our patent data is limited to our Indian Patent Office. Some paid databases are able to retrieve these patents and show them there, but otherwise we don't find them in the databases like Patent Scope or a SpaceNet. It's difficult to deal with patent data here. However, if we go to our annual report, we can see that there is a lot of green tech that is happening, and it is at about 50% is green tech. I will just skip all this, and I would want to tell about the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, pipe natural gas, and the Go Electric campaign. All these things are happening. There are schemes which are looking at green energy. Okay, and one case study, the Greenway Grameen's journey to scalability. There is a smart stove, and it has like there was a slide which talked about various angles, like how the supply chain happens. There is a distribution network. That's what this company has capitalized on, and it has evolved from a stove to a credit company. It has a distribution network. It has pursued a growth capital. It did have a patent, but patents are abandoned. I wonder why that happens. If anybody has any insights on that, that would be interesting to see, why people prefer to go without patent protection. right? And then I looked into it. That is basically because the first examination report was not submitted. They have a good market and things are happening for them, so they have left it. And then they have good networking, they have solutions, they have value capture. And from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we just looking at what is happening and a flow chart here. There is a national program on improved chulas, which was in effect from 1964 to 2002. Then the National Biomass Cook Stove Initiative till December 2009. Then Unnat Chulha Abhiyan program till June 2014. And right now there is a whole lot of cook stoves happening. Harsha cook stove, that is, it is without a patent, okay, but it was in the market even from our Karnataka State Council for Science and Technology, which, as Adisha mentioned, is one of the IP hubs, and a lot of support is happening. There was one chula which was called Ole, it was Astra Ole, but it never went for a registered IP protection. Okay. Then another state council which has a patent, it has a granted patent, a multi-fuel cooking. It's called Neelam Chula. It's also there in the market. It has a patent granted in 2020. And this is the one which is the latest one, which is the Surya Nutan. It is it is patented. It is called the twin cooktop model. This is another case study that I took up just before this talk, and was interesting to see that it works both on solar and auxiliary energy simultaneously, and the government supports it tremendously. It's in the market, takes care of all these things, and it has a patent. It is granted. It was applied for in 2020, granted in 2022, and a post-grant opposition has been filed in 23, showing that patent prosecution processes are all in place. I think I'll end with that and come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting to have those examples from the clean cooking world. I think we could have an endless debate about the pros and cons of patenting. I'm not an expert, but as I understand it, once you filed a patent, you have a limited time period to exploit that before it then is released for general use.
Exactly. 20-year time period from the date of filing. And what usually happens is there is a misconception that it cannot be commercialized, or you cannot enter the commercial pathway as soon as you file the patent. So people wait for patent grant. Patent grant can take anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6. That's the time period. Of course, it's happening way faster now, but it depends how long it takes, and that time is lost if you wait till grant. So the commercialization or the negotiation has to start as soon as your product or your prototype is ready.
Thank you. And there's some more questions coming through that you may be able to have a look at and answer online. Otherwise, we'll come back to. Okay, our last speaker is Mr. Rahul Bagga. He is the founder and MD of Umira, one of India's leading IP and corporate law firms, representing some of the best-known startups in different practice areas. Rahul is an Imperial College London graduate in chemical engineering. At Umira, he's worked with more than 1,000 and corporate clients on a range of IP and corporate law matters. His particular expertise is in building global IP portfolios, having prosecuted IPs in more than 60 jurisdictions, managing and negotiating international IP contracts, and managing enforcement of these IPRs in countries of interest. So, excellent speaker to discuss the international aspects of IP management. Over to you, Mr. Bagga.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the speakers just before me. Thanks for building quite a bit of background for me on clean energy cooking. Okay, so I've been given topics on how do you file patent overseas, how do you take your trademark overseas, and overall managing your IP overseas. And there's one interesting question as well in the chat window. That is there a risk that for markets where a filing hasn't been made and another party could file a patent in the jurisdiction, thereby blocking your future expansion into that market? So I'll bring you all up to speed in the as short time as possible, but feel free to ask any questions with respect to filing anywhere in the world. So let's start with, see, there are, as Nick in his beginning while introducing the session, he said there are several kind of intellectual property assets. Different kind of intellectual property assets, they have different laws for them to be taken overseas. For example, say copyright. Okay, now copyright is a sort of IP right which exists as soon as you create a work. So if I sing a song now with all of you being here, I have a copyright on that new song if I've created. And India being a member of Berne Convention, and there being about another 70, 80 countries. So if any copyrighted work is made available in one of these countries, it is assumed to have been made available in the rest of the Berne Convention countries as well, barring a few regulatory and legal formalities. So that's how copyright as an IP is taken overseas or is enforced overseas. But when it comes to patents, trademarks, even designs, the process is a little more complicated. Unlike copyright, patents especially are the rights that you acquire by filing an active application, by negotiating your claims with respect to the prior art, narrowing down your claims if you find a closed prior art, and then you give submissions to patent office with respect to okay, if there's a prior art that has A, I'm going to go with an invention which has A plus B, for example. So let me share the presentation. I'll start with patents. How do you take your patents overseas? And this will eventually answer questions with the one question that I picked up. Okay. So where to file? That is the first question I think we should all answer. Where do you file your patents? How do you decide which countries you want to file patents on? Usually there are two models that you can follow. One of the models is you file patents where your competitors are manufacturing, okay? Or from where they are sourcing the component that you are manufacturing. Another model is you file patents where you want to sell, where your market is. So, at times you want to really have a trade-off. Usually for startups, we want to keep the standard answer, you file startups and SMEs with, budget considerations to file in countries where your direct competitor might be manufacturing. Say, for example, in US, in Europe, or in China, these are standard answers. But at times it is possible that your main market is in Africa. There may not be many manufacturers there, for example, but the market is big, the opportunity is big. So you might start considerations of filing your IPs in African continent as well, even in South America, for example. So depending on these scenarios, how they come together, you need to decide on your strategy. But then all of this needs to be decided in pre-decided timeframes, of which I will talk about now. I hope my screen is visible. Okay, now, usually I say, when people ask me, when SMEs or startups ask me, when should we file? I say, when you have funds. So that is absolutely critical. Filing overseas, taking your application overseas, for resident of any country, it is an expensive process. Okay, if you take it to more the countries, more the expenses that are associated with it. But then international treaties and international organizations have come together to come up with some timelines that allows you to explore the feasibility of your invention or your products in a certain market before you decide or you take on a call to file in that country or not. Now, there are two routes to file patents abroad. One of the routes is Paris Convention. The Paris Convention is I think one of the world's oldest treaties that has not been, you can say, taken down, despite World War I, World War II, Cold Wars, all sort of wars have been there. Even before United Nations, there were League of Nations that also was dissolved, but somehow Paris Convention has stayed through all the tensions of the history ever since it came into accord. Now, Paris Convention laid down one rule. So when you file a patent in your home country, for example, if any Indian startup or an American startup or a European or an African startup or SME or a company, they file a patent in their home country, okay, they get 1 year of priority. They get to claim 1 year of priority from the date of filing in their own country to file in any other country of the world. So that means to say, so you that if you, for example, if you file your patent in your country on 1st of January 2022, you will have until 1st January 2023 to file your patents in the rest of the world, in all the countries, while still claiming your first filing date to be 1st January 2022. Now we have seen, there are two partners who started out, and one of the partners, the partners has a Discord. They went their separate ways. The other partner goes and files in USA, maybe a director in the company, and he files in the USA. But because your company had filed application before this guy who went into US, and when you enter US, even after the date of filing of your partner in US, you will prevail over that application. So Paris Convention gives you 1 year to claim the benefits of filing in your own country. But 1 year is a too less a time to decide, whether the product is good enough or not, whether you have interests from other markets or not. Which is why there is another route that is usually followed now, which is called as PCT route. This Patent Cooperation Treaty. The Patent Cooperation Treaty has only one, I would say only one purpose. The only purpose is to extend this 1 year deadline to 2.5 years. So that means if you file an application on 1st January 2022, you will have until July 2025 to enter in about 130 countries of the world, US, Europe, Japan, Africa, OAPI, South America, and any of these countries of the world until July 2025, while claiming the benefit of filing of 1st January 2022. So any references, any prior arts that will be considered for examination of your application will be dated from 1st January 2022. Before that, okay. So these are the two routes that you undertake. Now in India, for Indian startups, India has become now an international search authority. Now, because of which Indian startups tend to choose India as a search authority, ISA, because that brings down the fees of search fees. Because if you choose US, Europe, other countries as search authority while filing a PCT application, the fees is usually, I would say, $1,300, $1,500 with some discounts if available. But in India, it is straightforward 10,000 rupees, and you can have a PCT filed in India with that cost with ISA only. So these are the two routes for patents that you follow. Now, as you can see, Paris Convention is in force in around 170 plus countries. I've, took this image out of WIPO, and PCT is in force in about 148 countries. So I've taken this image out of WIPO as well. Now, there are some important countries which are not part of PCT, like Taiwan, like Argentina. Okay, so these are large countries, but these are not part of PCT. So if you have business interest there, file the applications within a year of filing in your home country. You will not be able to take advantage of filings in these countries based on PCT. All right. So to answer the question, if in the chat window that was, if we have not filed a patent in a certain country and somebody else files it, would it preclude our right to practice our invention? See, the law, this is a hypothetical fact, right? But I think, say, for example, if you have published your patent, if you have started publishing your work, you have started selling it in India, for example, right? And somebody, say, files it in Europe. Europe has a very stringent non-publication criteria that you cannot publish a patent you cannot publish your research before you file a patent. So in those scenarios, that patent may not even be allowed to that person. Okay. But when you go to USA, in US, there is a 1 year of grace period. So you start selling in US market or in India, you can, from the date of first sale or date of first publication, you can still file in US within 1 year. So there are several nuances to the law, which plays out when we are actually filing IPs. But to answer that question is not really straightforward. That's what I mean to say. It will definitely depend on the facts of the case at hand that you would have. But this is about patents. So you can file, as I said, under Paris Convention within a year, claiming priority, or under PCT route within 2.5 years, claiming priority for different inventions. This is a general flow chart, as you can see. So under Paris, you file, and then there are 12 months. All your filing abroads are triggered within 12 months. Whereas under PCT, all your filings are triggered within 30 months. Then there are some strategies I have put together. You can reach out to me. Then there is the trademarks. How do you file trademarks overseas, for example? Trademarks are interesting IPs, and unlike, say, even they're very unlike patents, right? Trademarks are also acquired under common law, and trademark are also given importance under consumer laws, consumer protection laws. So it is possible that your brand of clean energy cooking gets very popular in India. You have some takers in USA while you are not doing any active business in USA, and but your name is known through social media or some other way in US. You have done some marketing efforts, and somebody files a trademark, say in US. You enter that trademark in a later date, for example, that application you enter in US on later date. But if you can prove that in US this particular trademark belongs to you from before the filing date of your opponent, you will still prevail. So in trademark, there are no strict routines, or you can say timelines, although under Madrid Protocol or under simple direct filings, they give you 6 months of time period. So if you file a trademark application, say in India in January, so they will say, okay, by the end of 1st of July, you can enter these countries by claiming priority of filing in India. But that is not always the case, right? Businesses are slow to grow, especially in the turf, which is away from our home. So for trademarks, we usually recommend startups to not rush into filing trademarks in all the countries where they think the product would sell, because you will eventually get protection through sui generis law, so specialized trademark act law there, by giving evidence of using the trademark in that country from a certain date. You can still secure trademark registrations without claiming priority from filing from India. So these are some of the nuances between patents and trademarks. So I mean, these cover the two aspects. Then I was asked to also speak on, I was not clear, there's some mechanism available for protection of IP under e-commerce. I would say under e-commerce, if you mean by the websites, how they look like, the appearance of it, the designs of it, they are protected under copyright law. India does not give design registrations to UX and UI of a website, and they're protected under copyright law. And in most of the countries also, they're protected under copyright law. And again, under e-commerce, trademarks are critical. And for startups, one of the advisories that we give out is, if you have coined a new word, and then you also come up with a logo around it, better to file a word mark application so as to secure the rights on the sound of the word itself. Because in the digital media, you come up with doodling of your logos all the time, so you cannot be filing trademarks for all the different variations of your logo. So if you have coined a word, especially, come up with file word mark application, try to get a broader protection on that, and then you can replicate the same things in other countries as well. I think that covers my topic. If any questions, I'm open to take them.
That's really helpful. I think it's worked really well. Well done to Vimal and the team for creating the panel. We kind of got a good flow there of topics. And thank you, Mr. Bagga, for kind of moving us into that international realm in particular. We've got some good questions coming through. So some of them have been answered already, but some not. There was one I saw about kind of the balance of if you're trying to create a technology that will have maximum impact, do you want to protect it and try to restrict its use, or do you want to just make it available on a open source basis? And I think the answer has been suggested that actually, once you've patented something or registered a patent, you still can then make it available. You can license its use to anyone else that you choose to. It just gives you a bit more control over that. But there may be other perspectives on that. There's a question about the kind of cost of filing a patent, a PCT, for an Indian company. Has anyone got any kind of ballpark figure for what the cost and the time is? Or does it vary a lot? Anyone like to respond to that question?
Okay, so the Indian Patent Office has 3-tier approach. So if you are an individual, a small entity, or a 3 kinds of fees are there. For an individual, like 6,000, but the total cost is what you're asking, I guess. So total filing cost can vary depending on the attorney or agent you hire, and it's best to keep about 65,000 in hand for the filing.
Yes, as Mr. Bagga says, making sure you've got the financial resources is a key kind of initial stage. What about enforcement of your patents? There was a question earlier again about if another company sort of reverse engineers your product and creates something which is essentially the same. What options do you have as a small company to protect or to enforce your rights?
Okay,
Has anyone got any?
You can oppose it. The oppositions can be filed at any time, pre-grant or post-grant. That's possible. Of course, it comes with that much investment of time and money.
And on the reverse engineering, see, India, like many countries of the world, it is allowed. You can reverse engineer a product. The patent law is built on the principle to lay open. So it is, built on the grand axiom of Newton, maybe Newton. If I have seen any further, I've seen it by standing on the shoulder of the giants. So you definitely can take patents, right? You can rip them open. You can do whatever you want to do in your lab, but you cannot commercialize them. You can file patents on improvements, but again, you cannot. Reverse engineering is different from commercializing. So you can reverse engineer it. You can do whatever. You can file patents on improvements. Nobody can stop you. But as soon as you put out a product for marketing, selling, offering for sale, you put it on IndiaMart, on Flipkart.com. Okay, I'm selling. For example, there's a company, somebody invented a cup without handle, and you say, okay, I'm gonna have a cup with a handle so that you can drink hot beverages. And then you also put it on Flipkart.com. Somebody who has patents on the cup only, they are going to come after you. Okay, so reverse engineering is allowed, but commercializing products made out of it will depend if you have, reverse engineering is also of 2 kinds. There can be reverse engineering to work around or design around the patent, right? So if you've done, many pharma companies in India do that. If you can do that, then you're not infringing any of the patents. Go ahead and launch it. But if your patent is built on adding more modules to it, say there's a bottle and then you made a thermos flask out of it, most likely you are infringing the base patent, the cup, right? So you will not be able to commercialize that. You will have to take a license of it. So it depends what kind of reverse engineering you're undertaking around it.
It's like a problem solution. If there is a problem, there can be many solutions to it, right? So, right. And each one can be different.
Thank you. And some more questions are coming through. One is about whether there are options to file in multiple countries or whether a filing in one country is then recognized in other countries. I know Europe European open market works on that basis.
Yeah.
I think.
Europe has actually recently come up with UPC, Unitary Patent Convention. So in Europe is one such jurisdiction where but if you file under traditional EPO, it does not, see, EPO is like an examining body. It is not a granting body. So if you get a patent filed at EPO and there's an intent to grant from European Patent Office, you have to still take your patent and validate in different countries. That's how you enforce in different countries of Europe. Okay. But now Europe has come up with UPC, Unitary Patent Convention. So while until intent to grant is the same process, but at that time you have to decide whether you want to take a unitary patent covering the entire Europe, one single patent, or you want to validate in your countries of choice. That's where you decide. So this is the broad framework of it. Then there is OAPI for the North African countries. There are ARIPO for the South African countries, who club together and examine and grant patents for the entire all of the countries. Then there's a Eurasian Patent Office as well, which manages Eurasian countries, all the CIS countries, Commonwealth of Independent States, all those countries. So these are some of the treaties at the regional level that are being pursued, where you file at one office and it takes effect in different countries.
Thank you. I think I'm conscious of time. Some people will have to leave, but we can carry on as long as people are willing. If you do have a contact or an email address or a web link that you can put in the chat, maybe to WIPO or to the Indian Patent Office or your own company, your own connection that you're offering support to people for, then do put those in the chat and people can then follow those up. We've got another question relates more to how you can check on the status of a patent application that someone else may be have registered, or if there's a reference to a patent on a product, how can you look into that?
Okay, so if you go to the Indian Patent Database at INPAS, there is an application status tab there. If you put in your patent number or your application number, you can check if it is an Indian patent or an Indian patent application, you can check where it is. On the other hand, if it is accessible from other databases like Patent Scope or SpaceNet, then there is a tab for that. You know, you look at even Google Patents has, you look at legal status and you know exactly where it is in the prosecution process, or whether it has been assigned to somebody, or whether it is abandoned, lapsed, what it is. It's possible to check that, definitely.
Almost most of the countries, most of the advanced economies, they make their patent database freely available. So there was a question, I know we are running out of time, that whether IP patents restrict innovation. The answer is simple. See, if we have to take a cutting edge research in Nature, it's published in Nature journal, for example, it's not easily accessible. Okay, you have to pay, it's behind a payment wall. But most of the monoclonal antibody patents, for example, big molecules, small molecules, all this wealth of knowledge is actually in patent documents freely available. So that's a completely different way of looking at how patents actually do. If patents were not available, if not, they were not published in US, Indian pharma companies would not have been able to reverse engineer. It is as simple as that. So reverse engineering is possible because it is published. If it is not published or it is behind wall and it is available to only a select coterie of few who can afford it, then you're not forwarding the cause of research. And patents, by the virtue of governmental contract between you and the state, they have to make it available at no cost. So most countries make all their patent database available at no cost. So you can see the entire history of what transpired from filing until grant of a patent.
Very beautifully put, Mr. Bagga. It's excellently put. Appreciate it very much. Just to add a little bit more, like he said, etymologically, patent is something which is laid open, and it's opposite of latent, right? That's something which is concealed. So it's something which is put in front of you, and historically, if you see, it's something which is put open, which is revealed to you, but the government makes a deal with you. It's some kind of a barter that if you tell me everything, I'll protect you. So that's what it is. All the information is right there for a certain period of time, after which it comes into the public domain, right? And after it is published, it is for anybody to look at, make, use, and sell if it has not been protected in their territory, in their country.
And that's presumably why some companies may choose not to file a patent.
Exactly.
They prefer to keep it entirely
Absolutely.
restricted.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to offer any comments, particularly any of the panelists or Dr. Hema, in relation to the topics? It feels like we've just started something which is very big. Each of you is available, I'm sure, for further questions and discussion. No? Okay, and I think we've covered a lot of ground around filing of patents and how you manage and make decisions in that area. What we haven't touched on is so much the kind of company-to-company interaction. How would a company outside of India that wants to commission a manufacturer in India ensure that their intellectual property is well protected within that transaction and that commercial relationship? But that is another very big topic. I don't think we're going to have time to kind of touch on that now, but that may be one to add to our future list of topics. And if you do have any other suggestions of things that you would like, anyone who's on the call would like to see us discussing at one of these talk series, we're always open to suggestions. Anything that will really support the sector in India and internationally in terms of developing and growing modern energy cooking solutions. So do offer any topics or suggestions in the chat. But I'm going to kind of close down, but I'm going to invite Vimal to make any final remarks. Other than that, thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for the panelists. It's a wonderful session, and thank you, delegates, for joining.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.